Good morning. I am going to take you through a full edit of a newborn. This is one of my clients and friends' newest babies. I shoot newborns about no later than 12 days old. This guy, I think he was about 11 days. Um, Anyways, here we go. This is the original image. Shot it with my Sigma Art 50mm. They are perfect for newborns. And my ISO is about 160 at 1/640th of a second, and I was almost wide open at 1.6. This was shot in natural light. I positioned him kind of in front of one of their larger windows. This was an in-home session, and that's primarily how I shoot a lot of my babes. I don't use a flash. I don't use alien bees or strobes, anything like that. Just use straight light. So I'm gonna adjust just a smidge. I'm gonna up the exposure a little bit, turn down the highlights. You never want an overexposed baby or else they tend to look albino. This sweet baby had pretty great coloring. A lot of little ones tend to be a little jaundice, or have stork bites or acne or little blemishes, which you can kind of see, which I'm going to show you how to fix those too to get an overall clean look for your newborn. So I am using my Wolfpack preset. I'm going to start there and adjust it a little bit. I like my babies pretty clean, so I always remove any grain. I always want to go in and see where my central focus is, and I kind of like where it's at. So I'm going to adjust this just a little bit so I can get some really great clarity. I'm just adjusting the shadows as well as the whites. I believe my camera was on, I was shooting Kelvin and adjust from there. So I think I'm pretty good with this. I'm going to start my edit in Photoshop. So you can see I just adjust a little bit, toning, adding in a little bit of the darks. I don't think I'm going to do anything else in here. Sometimes I do a little bit of adjustments with my adjustment brushes here, but there's no need right now. I'm going to take it into Photoshop and do a full workover. Alright, I'm going to use my Greater Than Gatsby actions. I'm going to show you some of the newborn collection, which is kind of handy to clean up skin. You can create these on your own as well. These are just handy little tools I've accumulated. And one I want to show you is frequency separation. This is, I'm going to use, there's two versions, 8-bit versus 16-bit. It's your preference depending on how you shoot and what your settings are. So I'm going to use 16-bit, and it creates a few different layers. So you're going to paint on this layer only. It's kind of like making a mask layer, and then you're going to take your eyedropper, and I select kind of where the highlights are. You can kind of see your T-zone and then where the light hits here. And I'm going to mask over the little blemishes that sometimes newborns have. And this is relatively low opacity, 27%. My flow is 70-ish. If I was really worried, I would turn it down just a little bit so you don't get an overly masked baby's face. I have a lot of photographers, beginners, as well as other professionals that struggle with skin tones, how to remove blemishes, any sort of scarring, acne on any of their clients, redness. And this is a really great way to kind of fix that relatively easily. So from a distance, I am just going over the areas that stick out to me. I never put a highlight or a lighter color like here over a shadowy area. You're going to lose lots and lots of depth. Shadows are there for a reason because it creates form and roundness, and just kind of go over the spots that I see, and then I'm going to take it in a little bit more in depth to kind of touch up. So I'm going to show you before and after. I'm going to fix this a little bit because it's kind of bothering me. And I just get real close to the color that is kind of beside it and kind of work with it from there. I wouldn't do an all over painted layer, like don't just paint over the entire face because you're going to lose a lot of detail. Sometimes kids, babies, especially newborns, they start to look flat if you do a ton of softening or a ton of redness removing. So you just want to make it look kind of natural. So I feel pretty good about that. I'm probably going to remove this little bump and kind of right like that. So here is before, here is after my frequency separation, and I kind of like it. I don't see any other need. I'll probably soften these shadows instead of using frequency separation. Yeah, so I'm going to take you into Greater Than Gatsby Innocence Collection. This is the retouch. I use smoother, no detail. It just gives an all-over clean look. I use it for a lot of my skin in all clients, not just newborns. I'm going to soften kind of where the highlights meet the shadow. Just a little bit. And then also, I'm going to put a little shadow blending here with my softened skin. So everybody loves happy, squishy babies. A little bit down there. I never blur over lips, any sort of protruding or recessed area of our faces. Like I would never just blur all over the eyelid or the nose or the mouth, anywhere the face, anywhere the the shapes of the face kind of pop out. So it'll give you a flatter look, and here it is just with a little softening. So I'm going to soften up his arms. Just right there, just a little bit to give it an all-over cohesive look, and I will probably put a little bit down here on his little tummy. And as I soften, I tend to go back through and see where redness is, any other little marks, things that I think would pop out to my client that pop out to me. So I'm going to go back into my frequency separation, which is still open. And get rid of this little red area here, and it just kind of nicely evens everything out. I'll show you before and after, and then I'm gonna put my smoother over that in just a little bit. So yeah, it's looking good so far. I haven't edited this one, so I'm going directly kind of by how I feel. In my other videos, I kind of had an idea for what I wanted, and for this guy, I think I just want him to be pretty clean and pretty crisp. So, alright, he looks good. So I'm going to do a little bit of selective sharpening, which I've talked about in other videos. This is the Radiance collection, so I'm going to selectively sharpen just a few of the highlights and the lash line, just a teeny tiny bit. Again, I never sharpen 100%. I mean, my flow is about halfway and opacity is a little less than that. So I just went over the highlights of his lips. I actually might do a little right here on the highlight of his nose. And then I'm going to go over the lash line just a little bit. And then maybe over the knit just a teeny tiny bit. And this is how I edit. You guys may do it differently. And this is what works best for me. So I'll show you not sharpened, a smidge of sharpening. Not sharpened, just a smidge. So as I look at it, I'm going to soften this up a little bit. And this is all it is. It's going back and forth, especially with newborns. They take a little more meticulous editing for me to feel like it's a fully complete. So I'll probably be a little more meticulous about this than just an average session. So there we go. I think he looks really great. So what I'm going to do to pop him a little bit more, I'm going to go in my Kelsey Freeman actions, which are all pretty groovy. I'm going to use the blur the background a lot. And I'm probably going to take it at a higher opacity and higher flow rate, maybe about 75%. I just kind of guesstimate and see how it affects my image to where I put my levels at. So, and shooting wide open gives you really great depth of field, so I tend to just enhance the already blurred areas. I'm going to move this layer above my frequency separation because, as you can see, if you don't, oops, I put it in there. If you don't, it doesn't show up. There's my frequency, here's my blur layer. So this is a little too much non-blended blur, so I'm going to take it down just a little bit, maybe about 50%. And then I'm just going to take it and kind of blur these background areas so I get a good pop of my subject, as well as some nice separation from my background. Because you really want your main focus to be on your subject, especially if you are preparing these images for sale, for a proofing gallery. I even like that, like just a little bit. I tend not to blur too much on super fabrics like knits, anything with lots and lots of texture. It just looks kind of muddled in the end. I'm going to blur that back just a little bit. Just a little bit. And then I'm going to go back in my selective sharpen and sharpen this knot just a teeny tiny bit. So there you can see. I might go through here just a tiny bit in the foreground. Yep, that's probably all I would do to that. If you really wanted to, you could soften some of these curves just a little bit. It's completely up to you and your workflow, so that's mine. You can see frequency, width, blurred background. A little too much blur right there. Smoother. And then the selective sharpen. And that's probably all I'm gonna do. I might just see what it's like with this little quick fix, which is an underexposure quick fix. Super easy. You could do this without actions. I just happen to have it, so I'm going to use it and see kind of what it looks like. A little bit brighter. Sometimes if I do that, I will take it at a pretty low rate, and instead of exposing or fixing the underexposure on my entire image, this handy little mask tool is really great. I will erase the underexposure quick fix off of my background so it still has quite a bit of depth, as well as some of the highlighted areas. So there you go. Here's one of my newborn edits. Thanks for watching.